Hi there, this is Rachel, and we're coming in live from my Facebook page that I created called the Hall Home Academy. And I created that page as a way to chart our journey into homeschooling my two young kids. You saw one of them just now. You okay, bud?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not young.
Okay. So anyways, I wanted to come here live to spend some time reflecting on my journey. I've been posting and sharing things as we've been going along here, but I thought, you know what, I really just want to come in and talk to you guys about my experience and things I'm learning and all of that. So if you know of anybody that is considering homeschooling, is homeschooling, what have you, I'm always happy to connect and to hear you know, everyone's tips and tricks, as I still feel like I'm a baby in this. But anyways, so good morning, Tegan. Thanks for joining me. If you guys are viewing this from the YouTube channel, you know, shout out to you and thanks again for finding this video and for joining me. You know, I'm just here to share my thoughts on this new adventure that we all have been participating in and kind of go from there. So let me share with you kind of a backstory as to how this all came about. So basically, homeschooling is something that I wasn't exposed to a great deal, except for one friend in particular, whose sister happens to be on my live call right now. My friend Meredith, growing up, we became friends in middle school, and then in high school she became homeschooled. And really, her family at that point in my life was the only exposure I had to the concept of homeschooling. When I had children of my own, you know, the thought of homeschooling my kids was always there. But for whatever reason, you know, life just kind of took over and, you know, my kids did what I did, which was enter the public school system. I have two kids. Mackenzie is 11. She just finished 5th grade. Tyler is 7. He just finished kindergarten. And, you know, public school was really all I ever knew outside of my friendship with this girl called Meredith, who is also a homeschooling mom today, and we're still great friends. So the thought of homeschooling was always there. I didn't know if I felt equipped enough, or like, you know, all those what ifs and doubts that we sometimes run through our heads with, right? So I never explored it further, and it just, you know, kind of went by the wayside. Well, about a year ago, things started changing in my husband's company that was going to require us to move. He was putting more time in at the office, and the commute that we had with the office being relocated was just too much. So we were going to be moving. And it was one of those things where it was going to be in the middle of the school year, and I really didn't want to throw the kids into a new school district mid-year. And then again, the thoughts of homeschooling came up in my mind, and I thought, you know what, maybe now's the time. Which brought more fears because I was, you know, not starting at the beginning, but starting kind of in the midst of my oldest child's elementary education, and very nervous. But interestingly enough, you know, whatever you focus on grows. So I had these thoughts about homeschooling, and, you know, started to investigate it more intentionally. And don't you know that pretty much everybody that was coming into my life during that season of exploration somehow was connected to a homeschooling community. Either they were homeschooled themselves, or they were in the midst of homeschooling their kids. And I just like the Lord allowed me to have these really unique and fabulous conversations that made me feel like this was time. This was a calling. I needed to be obedient to it. And it was giving me faith that I could do this with the Lord's help. So I'm like, okay, God, I'm going to say yes to this. And I started pursuing it harder. And, we moved right before Christmas time. So it was like the weekend of Thanksgiving, we moved. And that was the start date, right, of our homeschooling adventure. So the kids went into school this last year for the first quarter. And then right at Thanksgiving break is when we pulled them out and started homeschooling. Before beginning, I wrote a post about how, our why we do what we do is very important. And if you know why you're doing it, it makes the hard times easier to get through because you have that vision and you have that driving you, right? So I wrote a few things down, and I just wanted to touch on those why points and how they played out in our journey thus far. And then I also wanted to tell you guys, how we actually went about homeschooling for our first year, and how did it go, right? That's the real question. How did it go? And will we be continuing? So I wrote down, my first thing I wrote down for why I wanted to homeschool the kids was, number one, I'm just looking for rich family time. Like, I really want that experience, that journey with the kids. I sent them away for 8 hours a day to public schools, and I just didn't feel like I knew my kids, like there was limited time. And so rich family time was a huge why for me. I was also really attracted to this idea of customized education. So being able to really adapt the curriculum and the teaching style and all of that to the child, to each child. So customized education was a big why. Flexibility. So I run a business from home. I love being my own boss. I love the flexibility of being able to choose a course of curriculum, choose how we operate and run our day, and just that flexibility and the gift that brings into our lives to do life on our terms. So that was huge. Another why was character training. So and discipleship. So these are things that obviously, whether you public school or homeschool or whatever type of school you're pursuing, all these things are things that can be pursued. But I just felt for me and my family, character and discipleship training could be enhanced in a homeschool setting. So really everything we're looking at through education is through the lens or our worldview of our faith, right? So character training was a huge why. Stewardship of time. So comparing what my kids experience in public school to what we get to do here at homeschool is time is a huge factor, right? I have a lot of friends who are public school teachers, and I know that for a majority of them, a huge chunk of their day is purely classroom management and getting kids from point A to point B. And if I'm to be a good steward of my time and time with my kids, I just feel like operating our education opportunities in a homeschool setting, we can get so much more done so much more quickly and be more effective and efficient. And I like that. So stewardship of time was a huge why. And then just, again, this calling, it's a calling that I told God, no, I wasn't ready for it. I wanted to, but I didn't believe in myself. So it was always there. But it wasn't until recently that I obviously said yes. So just answering that call and feeling a part of that mission to train up my kids and just have more authority over every aspect of that. You know, that was also a huge why. So those are the whys, guys. Rich family time, customized education, flexibility, the opportunity to adapt my child's passions and their pace of learning, character training, stewardship of time, home discipleship, and then just that sense of calling and mission. So in the beginning, for those of you who may not know how you even go about starting to homeschool, since my kids were already in school, I had to submit a letter of intent to homeschool along with an affidavit and submit that to my district. And then basically they just signed off on it, and I pulled the kids out and we started our journey in homeschooling. I'll share with you guys how we went about doing that over the last 7 months, and then, you know, express to you how I felt it went. So we sent that letter, got it submitted, and started homeschooling. Now, it was during the holiday season, so we took our time getting into our formal academics, just so that, especially my daughter Mackenzie, who had been in the public school system for many, many years, I wanted to give her a chance to kind of de-school. I don't know if you guys know that term, but it's just this, like, period of time where you're kind of unpackaging what is, or what was, to what is. And so we did a lot of field trips. We also moved, as I mentioned, so we were trying to get connected and learn where things were in the community, you know, so we took field trips to the library, and we took field trips to different local churches because we were trying to find a new church family to plug into. You know, we just explored the area, and we're in a really cool area, actually, just south of Pittsburgh, so there are tons of museums and all kinds of unique places to go and explore, and so we did that. And we used the holiday time as just as a time to, you know, kind of, I don't know, de-school and get ready for, you know, our more formal training at the start of the new year. So one of the things I chose to do, just because of being so new and not wanting to invest in a whole lot of curriculum up front, because I wasn't in a place that I really knew what would bring the greatest benefit to my kids, curriculum-wise, because if any of you are exploring this, you know, like, there are so many options. Like, it's crazy the amount of curriculum that's out there, and you can get overwhelmed. I have. Sometimes I still get a little overwhelmed at all of the different types of homeschooling. You know, you can do cyber school, which is basically the public school, but in a homeschool setting. You can, you know, totally do homeschool all on your own, without any supplemental support. You know, just use curriculum, but then there's like so many varieties, right? So it's a lot. For us, and again, just being so new and not wanting to put in a whole lot of money before knowing what would actually work for us, I came across this really unique online resource called Easy Peasy Online Homeschooling. And the woman who built this, God love her, she has such a heart for the homeschooling community and to provide a resource that's completely free. So I will link this website, so if you guys are interested, you guys can take a look. It's really, really pretty cool. So there, of course, are the different grade levels, and we just had Mackenzie, you know, log in to the 5th grade level, and it maps out each subject area and your assignments for each day, and we just followed it. Same thing for Tyler. So he was kindergarten, and so we just, you know, we did that. And it worked out really well. There were parts of it that didn't, and I will get into that. But I was happy to not have to fork out a lot of money for curriculum that I wasn't quite sure if we would, you know, if it would work for us or not. So I love that. I love the flexibility of it, and the fact that we didn't have to have a lot of material. So as some of you know, in our move, we've also decided to downsize, and we went from a 2,000 square foot house to living in our RV. That's where I'm at right now. So I wasn't interested in, you know, piling up our very small living space with a ton of curriculum either. So that was another reason I chose Easy Peasy Online. There's great support. There's Facebook groups for Easy Peasy homeschoolers. So if you had questions or if the online links aren't working, you know, you can really dive into those groups and get the support and help that you need. So overall, I thought that was incredible. The other thing what we did is that we used and maximized our library like crazy because in our downsizing, like, we got rid of a lot of books. The kids have a few things, but not a ton. And so every week we would make a trip to the library. Sometimes we would homeschool there just to get out of our tiny living space and have a different space to do homeschooling in. But we really maximized our library so that, of course, we could have new books every week, but we can always return them, which was awesome. I mentioned field trips. In our transition, you know, trying to get familiar with the community, we would connect ourselves with different things happening in various co-ops. So that was good and bad, and I'll talk about that too. But the co-ops were, you know, a part of how we tackled our first year here as well. Okay, so how did it go? So I made a list of the good and the not so good. The good thing was that, you know, I felt like overall, well, the best thing, and I'm going to end with this too, but I'll start with it as well. The best thing that happened was just the rich time I had with my kids, and I feel like I know my kids like 10 times better. I understand their strengths, I understand their weaknesses, and the ability to see that as a mom that is also training and equipping her kids and, you know, educating them really allows me to figure out how to play to their strengths, how to support them in their weaknesses. And so that for me has been the hardest and yet the most beautiful thing about this entire journey is that time with my kids and understanding them so much more clearly. So Mackenzie, you know, the good part about what she was doing was that for the most part, she was very independent. And that independence allowed me to be able to, as somebody who's just jumping into all of this new, it allowed me to really focus on Tyler, who needed, you know, more hand holding, obviously, in each of his subject matters. Whereas Kenzie, she could just log into the website, do her assignments, and then, you know, we could move on together with various things. So that was, and it was really cool to kind of watch her independent initiative in that. Like, I felt like, you know, her character qualities came out, and, you know, I really applauded her for the strength that I thought I saw in that pursuit. It also had a not so good experience in that, you know, pulling her out of public school where she had the classroom and she had all these teachers, that community, like, she really, really missed that. And I knew going into this that was probably going to be a very difficult thing. I mean, even just moving, right? She was missing all of her friends, but now she's missing the dynamics of a classroom experience. And we had lots of meltdowns. So, and I'm not going to lie, she wasn't the only one melting down on those days where it just kind of like hit home, right? So while the independent learning was good, in one way. In another way, you know, all of this transition was really, really hard. And they say your first year is always hard, but with the dynamics that we put ourselves through with the move and changing our lifestyle, like it was a lot. It was a lot. We got through it, but it was a lot. And it was, you know, whenever your kid is hurting and missing their friends or just sad, like that just really gets you, right? So I loved the part of Kenzie being independent, and then of course, you know, the missing the classroom dynamic was really tough. Being more hands-on with Tyler was a blessing. I felt like I could, you know, work with him and see his progress and watch him grow. And in particular, it was really cool to focus on his reading skills and watching him, you know, get better with that each and every day. But I was spending a lot more time with him on certain things versus Mackenzie. There were parts of our day that we would come together on, but then there were some subjects that Mackenzie was working independently while I was working with Tyler, and part of that dynamic was a little not so good because oftentimes Mackenzie would feel left out. Again, I think it just went back to that whole aspect of her wanting to be part of or missing that classroom experience. And so that was a struggle. That was really tough. And, you know, anytime you transition to a new community, it's always difficult to kind of find your niche, make your connections and relationships. You know, they take a while to build. So while I was doing my best to make that happen as fast as possible, it wasn't happening fast enough. And anytime we would plug into the various co-ops, which were very welcoming and we had a great time, at the same time, again, here for Mackenzie, the kids were always so much younger. There weren't very many, at least the co-ops that I was running into, or the activities and events that I was plugging into, there weren't very many kids that were her age. So I'm sure they're out there. I know they're out there. We hadn't run into them. And that was discouraging because then every time we would try to set up another opportunity to go out and connect with kids and other moms, you know, Mackenzie almost in a sense got this belief like, why even bother, Mom? There's not going to be anybody my age, you know, so that was hard. And I'm sure that will continue to get better as we, you know, get to know our community more and get plugged in more. It takes time. So finding connections is just happening slowly. So again, overall, I felt like pursuing this with my kids, it was the most rewarding and yet the most difficult thing I've ever done. Yes, we are still pursuing it, but now I feel like I have a better sense of, number one, how my kids learn, and, you know, we're starting to feel more part of the area that we're now in, and so we're just, yeah, we're moving forward and still learning a lot. But excited for what's to come. So recently, Jared and I went to the Lancaster Homeschooling Conference with the organization called CHAP. And there was like tons of speakers, and of course they had the expo with all the curriculum. So we're just kind of at that point where we were evaluating things together, which was awesome. To have Jared there with me during the conference was really powerful, so that we could, you know, be in the same space and hearing the same things, and then come back from that experience and talk through like how do we want to proceed, right? So I'm really excited to share with you guys what we took away from that event. And how we're moving forward, what we have planned to do for the kids in this homeschooling environment for the coming year. So anyways, that's just a little bit about our journey. If you guys have any questions, or if you yourselves are homeschooling and you have tips or suggestions for me, I am all ears, open to hear what you guys have to say and share. But I do really appreciate you guys listening in and being a part of our journey and just being there to encourage us. I hope that you guys have a great day, and I will be back. Like I said, I think probably sometime next week is when I'll roll out our next video on just sharing, you know, the things that we got from our conference and where we're going moving forward, right? And I'll talk to you about the curriculum that I'm going to explore with the kids for this coming year. So excited to talk about that. You guys have a great day, and thanks for being here. Bye.